That morning, the sky over Indianapolis hung low and gray, the kind of dull quiet that makes you believe nothing dramatic could possibly happen. I had just dropped Jake at baseball practice, Ellie at school, and stopped for coffee. My phone buzzed one small vibration that would split my life clean in two. A notification slid across the screen. Mom's birthday, family chat. I smiled without thinking. I'd been planning the entire thing in secret, the fancy Italian restaurant, the private room, the special dessert the chef owed me after I fixed his ceiling last winter. For once, I thought I'd done something right, something that would make them proud. Then I opened the message. "Don't come to Mom's birthday," my father wrote. "The whole family doesn't want you there." No greeting. No explanation. Just a digital knife in plain text. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. It wasn't even the cruelty that hurt. It was the clarity. Years of tiny humiliations, of being talked over at dinners, of watching my sisters get praised for existing while I worked myself raw, all of it crystallized into that one line. You'd think I cried. I didn't. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because, for the first time, they said the truth out loud. I typed one sentence in reply. "So you chose money over your daughter." Then I hit send. I didn't know which money I meant, maybe the status, the image, the inheritance my father used like a leash, but I knew one thing. This time, I wasn't the one paying the price. The replies exploded instantly. Brent, my cousin, dropped laughing emojis. Lisa, my oldest sister, wrote, "You really are delusional." And Jenna, the youngest, the one who sometimes texted me privately to check in, just tapped the little heart under Dad's message and stayed silent. Then came the meme. My face, badly photoshopped onto a clown. I actually laughed out loud. They thought they were humiliating me, but they were setting me free. Right there, in a crowded coffee shop, I deleted the restaurant reservation I'd spent weeks arranging. The private room, the flowers, the cake gone with 2 taps. For years, I'd rehearsed my role. The good daughter, the useful one, the peacemaker. But suddenly, I saw it all for what it was, a performance no one ever intended to applaud. When I stepped outside, the air was cold and damp, clinging to my lungs. I sat in my truck and just let the engine hum. I realized something that felt both terrifying and liberating. They didn't just uninvite me from a dinner. They uninvited me from the illusion that I still had a family. And strangely, that truth didn't break me. It built me. If it were you, would you stay silent or reply to a message like that? Tell us in the comments, because your voice is what keeps stories like this alive. Every like, share, and subscribe you give doesn't just support Revenge House USA, it gives strength to stories of justice, courage, and truth that deserve to be heard. So don't just watch, become part of the story. Hit subscribe now and catch the next jaw-dropping twist before anyone else. I didn't drive home right away. I just sat in the parking lot, watching people walk in and out of the coffee shop, carrying paper cups and small talk. The world moved like nothing had changed, but mine had quietly collapsed. For years, I had believed that love could be earned. That if I just worked harder, stayed quieter, and kept showing up, maybe one day they'd see me not as the failure they whispered about, but as a daughter worth keeping. I see now how foolish that was. I replayed every scene in my head. The birthdays where my name was left off the cake, the Thanksgiving dinners where my opinions were laughed at, the times my mom said, "You just take things too personally, Brooke," as if feeling hurt was the problem, not the cruelty itself. That morning, sitting alone in my truck, it hit me: they never loved me for who I was. They loved me for being useful. The text wasn't the betrayal, it was the confession. When Max called to ask if I wanted lunch, I told him everything. The message, the replies, the clown meme. I expected him to get angry for me, to say, "You should call them out." But instead, he just asked softly, "What do you want to do?" No one in my family had ever asked me that without an answer hidden inside. His question cracked something open. "I don't want a scene," I said quietly. "I don't want to beg to sit at a table that keeps pushing me away." He nodded. "Then stop trying to sit there. Build your own table." Those words stayed with me the rest of the day. At the job site that afternoon, I ran my hand along a half-framed kitchen wall, raw wood, clean lines, no judgment. I thought about how different houses are from people. When something's broken, a house doesn't lie about it. It lets you see the damage so you can fix it. But families? They wallpaper the cracks and call it love. When I got home, the silence felt heavier than usual. My phone buzzed again, the family group chat still going on, balloons and cake emojis flying, like I'd never been there at all. That stung more than the insults, because being forgotten burns deeper than being hated. I scrolled through the messages once more and then set the phone down face first on the counter. The reflection of the screen shimmered faintly on the marble, cold, distant, empty. In that silence, I realized something I'd never dared to admit. I wasn't losing them. They'd been gone for a long time. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally finding myself. I woke up the next morning to the same gray light bleeding through the blinds, but something inside me had shifted. The old version of me, the one who apologized before speaking, the one who edited her sentences to sound smaller, had died quietly in that parking lot. All night I'd replayed that message. The whole family doesn't want you there. Those words had weight. Not because they were true, but because I had carried them my entire life without realizing it. My father just finally said them out loud. So no, I didn't wake up broken. I woke up awake. Max made coffee, his eyes soft but watchful. He didn't ask how I slept. He didn't need to. He could see the storm still flickering behind my calm. When I left for work, he just said, "Go build something that's yours." That sentence felt like oxygen. At the job site, I stood in the middle of a gutted kitchen, bare studs, stripped drywall, the smell of sawdust and purpose. My hands moved automatically, measuring, marking, cutting, but my mind was somewhere else. For years, I'd built homes for other people while mine was crumbling. Now I wanted to build one that couldn't be taken away. By noon, my phone buzzed again. The family group chat still alive, still pretending I was dead. They were sending pictures of balloons, plates, wine glasses. Someone joked about extra cake now that we have fewer mouths. Brent sent another meme, a clown again. Different face, same message. I didn't open it. I didn't block them either. I wanted to watch, to study the rhythm of their cruelty. When you grow up around manipulation, you learn the language of silence, how tone becomes a weapon sharper than any knife. My family didn't scream or curse. They performed. Every joke was a dig wrapped in charm. Every compliment came with an expiration date. They thought I'd crumble, but something in me was hardening. That evening, Max found me in the workshop, sanding down a piece of maple for a countertop. My arms ached, but I didn't stop. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm furious," I said, eyes still fixed on the wood. But not the way I used to be. Not the kind of anger that destroys, the kind that builds. He nodded slowly. "Then let's build." I opened my laptop that night and stared at my small business page, just a handful of photos, a phone number, and a logo I'd made years ago. It looked timid. Like it was asking for permission to exist. I deleted everything. Then I started again. A new design, new photos, new headline. "Homes rebuilt. So are we." Oh, it wasn't a slogan. It was a manifesto. The next morning, I texted Mason, an old friend who ran a marketing firm. "I need a real brand video, booking system, full relaunch, fast." He replied 5 minutes later. "You building a house or an empire?" "Both," I typed. By afternoon, I was already filming short clips at the site, sawdust catching sunlight, my hands tightening screws, measuring edges. Mason said, "Don't act, just work. People believe competence more than tears." He was right. That night, when I posted my first video, my fingers shook. It wasn't about business. It was a declaration. A way of saying, "You don't get to define me anymore." The post read, "Demolition is honest. It tells the truth about what's weak, so you can build what will hold." Within hours, it had thousands of views. By morning, 3 new clients had reached out. When I walked into the kitchen, Max was flipping pancakes with the kids. "You're trending," he said, grinning. I laughed, a real laugh, the kind that feels like a rebirth. But by noon, another text came in. From Dad. "Enough is enough. Your mother's upset. You've made your point." I stared at the words, felt the old reflex twitch, the one that wanted to explain. to fix, to make peace. Then I did something I'd never done before. I muted the chat. Silence can be violent, yes, but it can also be sacred. For the first time, my silence belonged to me. That night, while the kids slept, I sat alone at the dining table, the wood grain glowing under the warm lamp. I pulled out a notepad and drew 4 columns. Brand. Pipeline. Move. Boundaries. Not revenge. Not even closure. Just blueprints for a life that would no longer require their permission. Each line I wrote felt like hammering a nail into my own foundation. When I finally looked up, it was past midnight. The house was still, the air soft with promise. I walked to the window and saw my reflection calm, unflinching, alive. They thought they'd erased me from their world. But really, they had just erased themselves from mine. And in that absence, I found space big enough to build something unstoppable. The morning after I muted the family chat, I woke up before the Sunday. The world outside was still dark, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years: clarity. Not peace, not yet, but a sharp, grounded stillness, like the air right before a storm that finally breaks. I brewed coffee, packed lunches for the kids, kissed Max on the jaw, and drove to the job site with my tool belt rattling on the passenger seat. For the first time in forever, I wasn't thinking about what my family thought of me. I was thinking about my future, my own future. The bungalow we were renovating stood crooked and stubborn, its walls stripped down to bones. Most people saw a mess. I saw a chance to rebuild. As I measured the studs, I caught myself smiling. Construction teaches you patience. It's loud, messy, unpredictable, but it rewards you for showing up. My family only rewarded perfection. But this house? It forgave me for learning. At lunch, Max joined me with sandwiches and a thermos of coffee. He leaned against the tailgate, watching me quietly. "Still angry?" he asked. "Focused," I said. "I'm done trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. I'd rather fix houses." He grinned. "You've always been better with foundations anyway." That line hit me harder than he knew. Because that's exactly what I was missing: a foundation built on my own worth, not their approval. That afternoon, I called Mason again. His voice came through the speaker, sharp and energetic. "All right, boss," he said. "Here's what I've got for your rebrand: clean layout, bold fonts, modern tone. You're not the handywoman next door. You're a designer, a builder, a business owner. Let's make people see that." I exhaled. Finally. He laughed. "Good. Because it's about time you stopped asking for permission." That night, I sat at the dining table with my laptop open, the house dark except for the glow of the screen. I uploaded photos of our best projects, sunlit kitchens, open-concept living rooms, before and after shots that looked like 2 different worlds. Mason messaged me mock-ups. Halstead renovations. Build honest, build strong, build home. I stared at that slogan for a long time. Every word felt like it had been waiting for me to arrive. The next morning, I shot my first professional video. Mason's team filmed me walking through the bungalow, explaining light angles, framing choices, material textures. "Talk about what you believe," Mason said from behind the camera. "Not what you sell." So I did. I talked about how homes are the mirror of their builders, how every beam carries a story, and every nail holds something together that was once falling apart. When the shoot wrapped, Mason clapped. "That's it. That's your voice. No pity, no anger, just truth." By evening, he'd sent the edited clip. I posted it right away, with a caption that simply said, "This is where new beginnings are built." I didn't expect much. But within hours, comments started pouring in. "Your craftsmanship is beautiful. Love your story, Brooke, keep shining. Finally, a builder who cares." One woman wrote, "I left a toxic family too. Watching you gives me hope." That one stopped me cold. I didn't know her, but I understood her pain like it was written in my bones. The video went viral overnight. My inbox filled with booking requests, messages from local designers, and collaboration offers. Even Mason texted, "You're blowing up faster than we planned. I told you you were sitting on gold." And then right on cue, my father texted again. "Enough is enough. Your mother's upset. You've made your point." "No, Hi. No. I'm proud of you. Just control wrapped in civility. This time I didn't even read it twice. I deleted it. Instead, I opened the new business dashboard. 5 confirmed projects. 2 consultations scheduled. 1 deposit already cleared. I smiled. That number might have looked small to anyone else, but to me, it was proof. Proof that I could build something real. Something that didn't depend on their approval or forgiveness. Later that week, I bought a new notebook and started sketching plans not for houses, but for life. A move. A real office. A future in Asheville maybe, where the air felt like a reset. Max peeked over my shoulder. Asheville? Maybe, I said. My cousin Ryan still has a place there. He said there's room if we ever need it. He smiled. Then maybe it's time we needed it. That. For the first time, the idea of leaving didn't feel like running away. It felt like walking toward something better. That night, as the kids colored at the table, I snapped a photo markers scattered everywhere, blueprints peeking under their papers, laughter filling the house. I posted it with the caption, "Lines first, then life." No hashtags, no explanations. Just a quiet declaration that rebuilding had begun. When I checked who'd viewed it, I saw familiar names: Lisa, Brent, even Jenna. They didn't comment. They didn't have to. They were watching. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Because while they watched, I was working. While they whispered, I was building. And while they tried to hold me in the past, I was already halfway into my future. The first sign that my life was changing wasn't the money. It was the silence. Not the kind that used to smother me, the new kind. The kind that hums with purpose. In a single month, Halstead Renovations had more clients than I'd had in the last 2 years combined. My inbox was a flood of inquiries, blueprints, deposits. Mason's team built the site like a living thing, crisp, powerful, unapologetic. Each click said, "She made it." The family chat, meanwhile, had gone eerily quiet. I didn't mute it this time. I left the notifications on just to watch the performance collapse without its favorite audience. Dad had stopped messaging publicly, but every few days he'd text privately. "Your mother's upset. You've made your point. Enough is enough." Enough of what, I wondered? Enough of existing without their permission? Enough of thriving where they said I would fail? For the first time, I didn't reply. Silence became my answer, and it was louder than anything I could have said. A few weeks later, Mason called. "You're trending again," he said. "The before and after videos are going viral. People are sharing your story. You've become a symbol for women starting over." The word symbol made me laugh. I wasn't trying to be anything. I just stopped being small. That weekend, I hired 2 new employees, Kelly for admin, and Marco for on-site coordination. When Kelly picked up her first call and said, "We at Halstead Renovations," I had to step outside and breathe. We. Not me, begging for validation. We. That one word felt like freedom. Then came the real test. Sunday afternoon, while Max was grilling and the kids chased each other with water balloons, my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Lisa had tagged me. The photo was of Mom's birthday dinner, the same one I'd been banned from. Candles, wine, laughter. Except this time the caption said, "Families go through hard things, but love always wins." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments praising their strong family bond. It was all fake. A theater of denial. I could have ignored it. I could have scrolled past. But I didn't. I opened my business page instead and posted a new photo. Me, standing inside the nearly finished bungalow, hands covered in paint, sunlight pouring in through the new windows. The caption read, "Sometimes love doesn't win. Truth does. Build what's real." No names, no shade. Just truth clean and sharp as a blade. By evening, it had more engagement than Lisa's post. By midnight, it had tripled. Comments flooded in. "Needed this today. Your strength is inspiring." This hits harder than any apology. Even Brent, the cousin who made the clown meme, messaged me privately. "Hey, I was a jerk. You didn't deserve that. Respect." I stared at his text for a long moment, then typed 2 words. "Thank you." Not forgiveness. just acknowledgement. That night, while Max closed the grill and the kids laughed under the porch light, I realized something profound: revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it builds. Quietly. Brick by brick. A week later, I got an unexpected call. Ryan, my cousin who left the family years ago, said, "I've got a place in Asheville. 4 bedrooms, workshop out back. Remember I said there's room for you if you ever want it?" Still true. Veh. I looked around at our half-packed boxes, at the sketch I'd made for a new office, at the way Max and the kids had started calling this new rhythm home. "Maybe it's time," I said. "Because that's what revenge really is, isn't it? Not hurting them back, but moving on so completely they can't reach you anymore." That night, I stood in the doorway of our living room, the space glowing in soft lamplight. I used to think justice meant making them see the damage they'd done. Now I understood it was simpler than that. Justice is peace. Revenge is freedom. And I'd finally built both. I used to think walking away would feel like failure, like admitting defeat. But the night we packed the first box, it didn't feel like running. It felt like coming home to myself. The house was half empty, full of echoes that used to belong to someone desperate to belong. The walls had heard my apologies, my late-night tears, the endless rehearsals of what I'd say if they ever decided to love me right. And now, they'd finally hear silence. Real silence, the kind that doesn't ache. Ellie drew a purple maple tree on one of the moving boxes and wrote, "Our new life," in wobbly letters. Jake added a baseball diamond next to it. Max labeled them all in neat black marker. Kitchen. Books. Tools. Toys. He was steady, always steady. "You sure about Asheville?" he asked gently as he taped another box shut. I nodded. "Ryan says there's a workshop out back. A porch that catches morning light. It feels right." He smiled. "Then that's enough." The next morning, the moving truck pulled up at dawn. No goodbye texts, no waves from the neighbors, just the sound of doors closing and futures opening. As we loaded the last box, my phone buzzed again. "Dad. You're overreacting. Enough is enough." That phrase again. The anthem of control. I didn't reply. I didn't even open the message. I turned off the phone, slid it into my back pocket, and whispered to myself, "Enough. Really is enough." When the truck door slammed shut, I took one last look at the empty living room sunlight pooling on the floor like forgiveness. It didn't hurt anymore. It felt clean. The drive to Asheville was long but peaceful. The highway unspooled in front of us like a ribbon leading somewhere new. Ellie sang along to the radio, off-key and happy. Jake fell asleep with his glove in his lap. Max reached across the console, found my hand, and didn't let go for miles. 8 hours later, Ryan was waiting in the driveway of a white house with a wide porch and a big maple tree out front just like Ellie's drawing. He handed me a key and 2 boxes of pizza. "Welcome home, cousin," he said with a grin. That night, after the kids fell asleep on sleeping bags, I stood outside on the porch with Max. The air smelled of pine and quiet rain. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. The next morning I turned my phone back on. The messages poured in like a flood trying to reclaim what it had lost. "Mom, please don't shut us out. Families fight, but we can fix this. Lisa, you're tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding. Jenna, I wish you'd said goodbye. Dad, you've made your point. No. No apologies. No accountability. Just guilt dressed as concern." I scrolled slowly, reading each word like a page from an old book I'd already memorized. Then, with one deep breath, I deleted the entire thread. Not out of anger, out of peace. That moment, that quiet, decisive delete, was my liberation. In the weeks that followed, life began to take shape in soft, beautiful ways. The workshop behind the house became my new headquarters. I painted the walls white, hung my tools with care, and carved the words, "Built from Truth," above the doorway. Halstead renovations grew faster than I could keep up. Local news picked up my story. Single mother builds thriving renovation business after cutting ties with toxic family. Mason called laughing. You just became the face of rebuilding literally and metaphorically. But what mattered most wasn't the press. It was the quiet mornings on the porch, the smell of coffee and sawdust, the laughter of my kids echoing through a house that finally felt alive. One afternoon, I opened my inbox and froze. An email from Mom. Subject line, "Maybe we can start over." I read it twice. It was long, full of nostalgia and half apologies. "We just want to see the kids. Your father's changed. We're moving to Asheville soon." I stared at the blinking cursor. Then, gently, I closed the email without replying. Healing doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes it means knowing when not to. A month later, we passed them Mom and Dad at the grocery store. She looked smaller, like the years had folded her in half. Dad leaned on a cane, his eyes sharp but hollow. "Brooke," she said softly, clutching her basket. Ellie tugged my sleeve. "Who's that, Mom?" I smiled gently at her. "No one, sweetheart. Let's go." Mom called my name again, quieter this time. Dad just watched me walk away, confusion and regret flickering across his face. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel rage. I felt nothing but calm. Liberation doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes, it just breathes steady, quiet, unbothered as you walk away without turning back. That night, under the soft hum of crickets, I sat on the porch watching fireflies spark across the yard. Max came out with 2 mugs of cocoa. "They'll keep trying," he said. "I know," I whispered, smiling. "But I won't." He kissed the top of my head, and for a long time, we just sat there, no noise, no performance, no pretending, just peace. And as the wind moved through the maple leaves above us, I realized something simple but true. They didn't lose me because I left. They lost me because they never really saw me. And I had finally learned to see myself. 6 months passed like water slipping through open hands. Asheville became more than a new chapter, it became my language of peace. The mornings started slow. The air was cool, sharp with pine. I'd step onto the porch with my coffee and listen to the quiet hum of life waking up around me, Ellie's laughter from her room, the sound of Max hammering in the workshop, Jake yelling something about a new baseball glove. This was what freedom sounded like. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of peace. Halstead Renovations was thriving. Bookings were months out. Mason joked that I'd become a small-town legend. But I didn't want the legend, I wanted the stillness. Clients trusted me. My crew respected me. My hands built homes again, but this time I was building mine too. I didn't think much about my parents anymore. Until one afternoon, I got a voicemail. "Brooke, it's Lisa. Dad had a stroke. She's not doing great. They're moving to Asheville. She says she wants to make things right." Her voice cracked like it was trying to find sincerity through the guilt. I deleted the voicemail. 2 weeks later, Fata tested me again. I was standing in a grocery aisle debating cereal brands with Ellie when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Brooke." I froze, turned, and there they were, my parents. Mom's hair was thinner, her shoulders smaller. She looked fragile in a way I'd never seen. Dad leaned on a cane, his once firm eyes now soft and confused. For a heartbeat, all the old reflexes came back. The urge to make it easier for them. To fill the silence with kindness. But then Ellie tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Who are they, Mom?" I smiled down at her. "No one, sweetheart. Let's go." Mom's voice trembled as she called my name again. But I didn't turn around. I didn't owe them that. My peace wasn't up for negotiation. That night, I waited for guilt to come. It didn't. What I felt instead was relief, the quiet, steady kind that comes when you finally stop mistaking pain for love. A few days later, another message arrived. This time, from Mom herself. "Maybe we can start over." She wrote about the lake house summers, the old family dinners, how families shouldn't stay broken. She said they were different now, that they missed me. I stared at the email, then closed it gently without replying. Healing isn't about reopening the wound to prove it's healed. It's about knowing which scars don't need to be touched again. Max found me sitting on the porch that evening, the unread email still in my mind. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," I said, and I meant it. He smiled. "You don't owe anyone your peace, Brooke. And for the first time in my life, I didn't argue. Winter came quietly. Snow covered the maple branches in silver. Ellie made snow angels in the yard, Jake built forts, and Max handed me a mug of cocoa so hot it burned my palms just enough to remind me I was alive. Then, one evening, I got a text from Brent, the cousin who'd made the clown meme. I was wrong. You didn't deserve that. You didn't lose your family. You outgrew the noise. I stared at the words and felt something soft and clean move through me. I typed back just 2 words. Thank you. Not forgiveness. Not reopening. Just acknowledgement. A full stop at the end of a long, painful chapter. That night, sitting on the porch under a sky dusted with stars, I watched Ellie draw in her sketchbook. She showed me her latest picture, our family under a maple tree with a swing, a house glowing behind us. At the top, in uneven letters, she'd written one word, home. I smiled. It's perfect. Because it was. My parents were somewhere across town, still trying to rewrite a story they lost the right to tell. But this peace, this laughter, this life was mine now. They had their silence. I had my rebirth. It's been a year since the message that broke the illusion. A single text that said, "Don't come to Mom's birthday." Funny how one line can destroy an entire version of yourself and at the same time set the next version free. When I look back now, I don't see chaos anymore. I see construction. Every heartbreak, every silence, every humiliation, they were just the demolition before the rebuild. I've learned something only pain can teach. When people push you out, sometimes they're just clearing the space for who you're meant to become. Asheville feels like a long exhale that never ends. The mornings start with gold light pouring through the maple leaves, Max humming in the kitchen, Ellie and Jake arguing about who gets the first pancake. The noise I live with now is alive. It doesn't sting. My business has grown beyond anything I could have imagined. We renovated our first community center last month, a place for kids who don't always have homes that feel safe. When I walked through those finished halls, I realized I was building more than houses. I was building healing spaces. One of the volunteers told me, "You're giving people back their sense of belonging." I smiled. So am I. Because that's what this journey became, not revenge for what they took from me, but reclamation of everything I forgot I had. Sometimes, people in town recognize me from that old viral video, the woman who rebuilt her life after being disowned. They ask if I ever forgave my family. I always tell them the truth. I didn't forgive them to make them feel better. I forgave them so I could stop bleeding from wounds they no longer touch. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a gift to the past. It's a gate that opens toward the future. A few weeks ago, I heard that my parents moved again, a small apartment on the edge of town. A neighbor said my mom sometimes bakes pies she never delivers. Maybe she's waiting for me to show up at her door. But that door isn't mine anymore. If I'm honest, I don't hate them. Hate keeps you tied to the fire, and I've already walked through it. What I feel now is something quieter, a kind of understanding that doesn't excuse but also doesn't chain me to yesterday. They gave me silence, and I turned it into music. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. Last night, after work, I sat on the porch with Max. The kids were inside drawing again, Ellie still obsessed with that purple maple tree, Jake designing his dream baseball field. The sunset burned orange across the mountains, and I realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. Not for closure. Not for an apology. Not even for understanding. Peace had already arrived. It had been here the moment I chose myself. Max squeezed my hand gently. You ever think about going back? I shook my head. No. Because I didn't walk away to punish them. I walked away to find me. He smiled, that quiet kind of smile that says more than words. And did you? I looked at the house, the kids, the glowing windows that held laughter instead of judgment. I did, I said softly, and I built her strong. That, when I teach new apprentices now, I tell them the same thing I had to learn the hard way. You can't build a second story on rot. Sometimes you have to tear it all down to find the strength underneath. That's what this whole journey was, demolition first, beauty later. So if my family ever drives by this porch, if they ever stop and wonder how I could walk away so easily, I hope they remember this. I didn't walk away to hurt them. I walked away to heal me. And this peace, this house, this laughter, this freedom is the masterpiece I built with my own 2 hands. You think this journey is over? Think again. Hit subscribe and join Revenge House USA as we uncover more stories of revenge through peace, where justice doesn't need to scream. It simply breathes in freedom. No. Your turn. When you finally find yourself after all the pain, would you choose to forgive, forget, or rebuild from the ashes like Brooke? Every like, share, and subscribe from you isn't just support, it's the heartbeat that keeps these stories alive. You're not just a viewer, you're part of the Revenge House USA family, the voice that reminds the world that strength can be silent but never invisible. But the truth is, that's only where real life begins. Because revenge, the kind that lasts, isn't about destruction. It's about construction. I used to think I needed my family's apology to feel whole again. I waited for it, prayed for it, built entire versions of myself hoping they'd finally see me. But what I didn't realize was this. Their approval was the lock, and I was holding the key all along. The day I walked away wasn't the day I lost them, it was the day I found my freedom. In every house I rebuild now, I see pieces of my story. A cracked beam becomes a reminder that strength can be hidden under damage. A patch of drywall turns into proof that healing doesn't erase the past, it carries it gracefully. And every time I drive a nail into wood, it sounds like a heartbeat saying, "You made it, you're still here." I learned that justice doesn't always come dressed like a courtroom victory. Sometimes it shows up as quiet mornings, warm coffee, and the laughter of the people who never asked you to shrink. That's the kind of revenge the world doesn't understand. The revenge of peace. People sometimes message me online. How did you forgive them? The truth is, I didn't forgive because they deserved it. I forgave because I deserved peace more than I deserved to stay angry. Forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was architecture. I built it the same way I build a home, brick by brick, breath by breath, truth by truth. And one day I realized I no longer needed them to clap for the woman I became. Because I wasn't performing anymore. I was living. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've been uninvited from the table you built yourself. Maybe someone told you that you weren't enough, or that your voice was too loud, your dreams too big. Let me tell you something. They were wrong. You don't need their invitation to build your own life. You are the foundation, the architect, the design. You are allowed to start over. And you don't have to wait for anyone's permission to do it. Tonight, when I close my workshop and step onto the porch, the mountains glow in the last light. The maple tree sways, the swing creaks gently, and my daughter's laughter floats through the open window. That sound, that laughter, is the justice I never got in words. Because in the end, I didn't win by fighting them. I won by refusing to become them. I built a life so honest, so peaceful, so full of love that their cruelty no longer fits inside it. Final outro message from Revenge House USA. Where betrayal ends, rebuilding begins. Where pain once stood, purpose rises. And where the world tried to silence you, let your peace be the loudest sound. If this story moved you, don't just watch, be part of it. Subscribe to Revenge House USA and share this video, because every view, every like, every comment helps stories like Brooke's remind the world. Revenge isn't about hurting back, it's about healing forward. If you were rebuilding your life from the ashes, what would be the first brick you'd lay down?